Learning to negotiate is crucial, because the world has become more democratic, and everyone is encouraged to participate in decisions being taken. Negotiation has become essential in all aspects of life, whether it's deciding on a movie with friends, discussing prices with suppliers, or international diplomacy. As negotiation is a part of daily life, it's a valuable skill to invest your time in. When you have the right knowledge and tools, you can improve the outcome of most negotiations. In the following summary, we will introduce you to the fundamental principles of getting the most out of negotiations. Avoid trench warfare. It costs a lot and brings very little in return. Don't get stuck in trench warfare during conflicts. It's costly and rarely leads to positive outcomes. Trench warfare happens when both sides defend their positions fiercely, making agreements only when forced. This approach makes it hard to find a win-win solution. In these conflicts, both parties are fixated on their initial positions, focused on winning or avoiding defeat rather than working together to find the best solution. This often leads to prolonged and exhausting arguments. Trench warfare doesn't just complicate conflict resolution, it can also damage relationships. For instance, prioritizing a small discount over a long-term business relationship isn't wise. Trench warfare is problematic because it results in poor solutions, consumes time and energy, and harms relationships. Keep in mind that you're negotiating with people. It is short-sighted to consider a negotiation as a factual discussion between perfectly rational individuals. In negotiations, there is never one reality, there are always at least two subjective interpretations of reality. Both sides always bring their personalities, experiences, values and emotions to the table. This means they will often look at things differently and have their own interpretations of the facts. Sometimes two people will talk about totally different things without even realizing they are doing so. Also, people can respond very differently to the same situation, especially if it's a stressful one. A long, intense discussion can make one person aggressive, which might irritate the other person and make them defensive. When this happens, any further discussion becomes effectively pointless. In every negotiation, the combination of differing perceptions and strong emotions make it difficult to have a mutually satisfactory result. And, unfortunately, rational arguments do not help. Every negotiation actually happens on two distinct levels, the level of factual arguments, and the level of human perceptions and emotions. It's never possible to completely separate these two levels, of course, but keep in mind that there's always an interpersonal level at play in addition to the facts, and that this can be the source of many conflicts or misunderstandings. Hence, address emotions like anger or fear. This requires empathy and the willingness to consider not only the facts but also the people you are dealing with. Fight the problem, not the person you're negotiating with. Don't fight the person you're negotiating with, focus on solving the problem together. The aim isn't to win like an opponent, but to find a long-term solution. To do this, separate the factual aspect from the personal one and stay focused on the facts. This approach works best when both sides tackle the problem rationally instead of emotionally. It's crucial to view each other as partners seeking a win-win solution, not as enemies in a battle with only one winner. Ideally, sit on the same side of the table to change the perspective from a battle to a shared problem-solving approach. Use neutral language and stick to the facts. Avoid personal attacks or accusing the other person of being unreasonable, as it creates distance and emotional responses. For instance, a separated couple should discuss what's best for their children's future, not blame each other for the failed marriage. Before you search for solutions, understand both parties' underlying interests. Sometimes, positions in negotiations may seem incompatible, like a couple's holiday plans. I want a beach holiday, versus, I want to go to the mountains. But digging deeper, you might find common interests. For instance, if one wants to swim and the other wants to rock climb, consider a holiday by a mountain lake. However, positions often come from various interests, like geography, accommodation, or food preferences. To reach a constructive solution, understand all relevant interests. Identify differences, prioritize, and discover where compromises can happen. What are their goals? Where do you agree? What drives the differences? People are often motivated by basic needs for recognition, control, security, and belonging. If you're unsure about the other person's motivations, ask questions like, "Why do you want this?" Also, be clear about your own interests. Openly express them before suggesting solutions. Only when everyone's interests are clear, a satisfying solution can be found for all parties. Outline options before you search for solutions. Before finding a solution in negotiations, don't rush into one-sided proposals. Instead, focus on outlining various potential solutions. Bringing draft contracts or single options is likely to fail because it's imbalanced. Rather than bringing such one-sided proposals to the table, be open to discussing all kinds of potential solutions, and only accept one that both parties happily agree with. In a negotiation, you should follow two distinct phases. First, brainstorm potential solutions, and then, agree on one. Start by exploring extreme positions, considering different scenarios, and being creative with ideas. Involve experts, sketch out possibilities, or even turn it into a game. By doing this, you'll generate numerous solutions. In the second phase, discuss and, hopefully, find options acceptable to both parties. Always find objective criteria to base your decision on. Even if your intentions are good, surprising your negotiation partner with a fully formed solution usually leads to disagreement and defensive or aggressive responses. Instead, start by establishing clear and objective criteria for decision-making, leaving no room for misinterpretation. For example, determining a fair price for a house isn't solely based on what the seller or buyer had in mind. It should consider objective factors like the average price per square meter, the building's condition, and comparable home prices in the area. During negotiations, both sides should openly share their criteria for evaluating solutions. While the criteria don't need to match exactly, they should be objective and comprehensible. Avoid giving up to pressure or ultimatums. If someone presents a final offer, inquire about the underlying criteria, like, why is that a fair price? Sometimes, there won't be established benchmarks to rely on, but strive to find objective criteria for decision-making. When you can't identify the right criteria, ensure a fair decision process. This fundamental aspect of negotiation is even taught in kindergarten, using the "I cut, you choose" method, where fairness is preserved when dividing a cookie between two children. The first child cuts, but the second child gets to choose which half they want. To negotiate well, you have to be well prepared. Successful negotiation demands thorough preparation. Never enter a negotiation unprepared. This means gathering and studying facts, understanding the people involved, and knowing the negotiation context. What motivates the other person? What are their interests, goals? Are they independent in their decision, or do they have to consider the interests of their bosses, partners, or spouses? Are there certain personal, political, or religious conditions you should know about? The more you know, the better you can find constructive solutions. Also, don't underestimate the logistical details of negotiations. When and where should the negotiation take place? At your office? At home? On neutral ground? What about the meeting itself? How should it take place? By phone? Face to face? Or even in a larger group? What role does time play? Will pressure in the form of a deadline help or harm the negotiation? By investing time in studying the details and preparing thoroughly, you help to create a positive setting where both sides will feel comfortable. This vastly improves your chances of having a constructive discussion rather than becoming stuck in your initial positions. Negotiation is communication. Listen and stick to talking about facts. It is no secret that most conflicts and problems would never arise in the first place if there was better communication. Often, misunderstandings and knowledge gaps are what lead to arguments, and better communication can help avoid both these problems. Even if there is an open conflict, make sure your communication is positive and solution-oriented. Keep the discussion going, and don't let the flow be interrupted by both parties becoming fixated on an argument. To do this, you must first of all listen. Don't hear only what you want to hear but what the other person is really saying. An easy tool is to rephrase what you hear. For example, if I understand you correctly, your point of view is. This way, you show that you're listening, and you avoid misunderstandings from the very start because the other person can immediately clarify if something has been misunderstood. Once you've understood the position of the other person, state what your own interests are. Don't talk about what you consider to be their mistakes in his position. Instead, talk about your own expectations and hopes. Never respond emotionally, but, when necessary, give the other person space to vent their anger or other emotions. When such emotions arise, explain them. For example, I see why you are angry, and I myself was disappointed because. Negotiation is essentially communication. Improved communication can prevent many conflicts and misunderstandings. If conflicts rise, maintain positive, solution-oriented communication without getting stuck in arguments. The goal is always to bring the discussion to the level of facts and to keep the discussion flowing. Silence is the end of every negotiation. Even the best tools can't always guarantee success. In theory, a negotiation should always lead to better results if both sides are open, structure their negotiation correctly, use objective criteria and strive to find an ideal solution together. But you can never force the other person to act in a certain way or to give up their extreme position or irrational expectations. It can help to open the discussion by outlining the matter at hand as well as the process you would like to follow in the negotiation. Agree on how you want to negotiate and how you will make a decision. If the other person refuses to follow such a process, or if they use dirty tricks such as the classic, good cop, bad cop, or the insidious, I would love to, but my boss, then address this openly. Make it clear you will only accept a discussion based on an understanding of both sides' interests and focused on objective decision criteria. In addition to the process of your negotiation, there are other factors that can impact the outcome of the negotiation. For instance, whenever there is an imbalance in power between the two sides, like when you discuss a wage raise with your boss, you can only point out why you think it would be beneficial for both of you. But in the end, boss will decide on how the negotiation goes and you will have to accept it. That's it for now. This summary was presented for you by Curious Mind Habits. If you enjoyed this summary, make sure to hit that subscribe button right down below and don't forget to turn on the notification bell as well. Your support means a lot for us, and every like, comment, and share fuels our passion for creating high-quality audio summaries. Thank you for being with us. Keep learning, keep growing, and stay curious.